Hello friends, this is Dr. Vanna. Today's lecture is on the topic renal physiology. First of all, what is excretion? As you know, the excretion is the process of elimination of waste from the body produced during the process of digestion and metabolism. So, the major organ system which is responsible for excretion is urinary system, especially the metabolites which are produced during the process of metabolism or cellular metabolism. The various nitrogenous harmful waste products uh, are formed and they are then excreted in the form of urea, creatinine, uric acid, various toxins, drugs, hormone, salt, water, or some hydrogen ion. They are all being excreted as all are water soluble, so they are excreted in the form of urine through the urinary system. Other organs which have excretory function are respiratory system, integumentary system and digestive system. So in respiratory system, the lungs are the major organ and they are also doing the function of excretion, that is excretion of carbon dioxide and water. Similarly, the integumentary system, the skin, the skin has sweat glands and they play great role in maintenance of body temperature, help in removal of extra heat from the body, and in the process of sweating there is release of some waste products also in the sweat like inorganic salt, lactic acid, urea. And next one is the digestive system. In the digestive system, there are the gut. So gut is responsible for digestion of food and as well as the forms excreta is excreted out in the form of feces, and that feces also contains water, salt, and gut microbiota or bacteria. And the important organ of the digestive system is liver. It is involved with the detoxification of various harmful products, drugs, and involved with the metabolism of bilirubin. So the lipids, bile pigments, cholesterol, heavy metals, toxins, or the metabolite drugs, they are being also excreted out. Now, what are the functions of the kidney? The major function of kidney is the excretion, but apart from that, it also helps in maintenance of homeostasis of the body in different forms, like it helps in maintenance of body water and electrolyte balance, pH of the body. It helps also in blood pressure regulation, basically through the renin-angiotensin mechanism, which we will discuss in detail later. Hemopoietic function. The kidney also release few hormones like erythropoietin and thrombopoietin. Among them, the erythropoietin help in the process of RBC formation, and it is released from the kidney when there is a lack of oxygen, sense of lack of oxygen to the kidney because of less blood supply, or there is release of thrombopoietin which is responsible for making thrombocytes. And in the kidney has a capacity to auto-regulate its blood flow, and it is because of there is release of some hormones also from the kidney, from the mesangial cells, and this is the prostaglandin, and because of that the glomerular filtration rate, it is always maintained within the physiological limit. Next is it also helps in regulation of level of calcium levels, blood calcium levels. So how it helps, basically the when there is a decrease in calcium level, so it gives a stimulus to the parathyroid gland, then there is release of parathyroid hormone, and then that parathyroid hormone when it reaches into the kidneys, it stimulates the proximal convoluted tubular cells to release alpha 1 hydroxylase enzyme, and that enzyme activates the vitamin D into its active form. From 25 hydroxycholecalciferol, it gets converted into the dihydroxycholecalciferol, that is also called calcitriol, and that helps in absorption of calcium in the renal tubule itself, more absorption of calcium from the GIT also. So, and in the extreme conditions of starvation, it also helps in somehow synthesis of glucose also. Now, what is the structure of kidney? Basically, here we will discuss about the structure of nephron and its blood supply. So, as you know, the kidney has if it a little bit we'll discuss about its anatomy. So it is a retroperitoneal organ, and it is present into the along the posterior abdominal wall, and it extends from T12 up to the L3 vertebra, and its length is almost 11 centimeters. And if the talk about the position of the two kidneys, so basically the right kidney is little bit in lower because of presence of liver on right side. Now about the structure of this kidney, so here you can see there is a renal capsule. It is a fibrous coat. Then the renal mass, it is divided into two parts, cortex and the medullary part. Medullary part is again divided into the different renal pyramids, and then the part called calyx, which unites make the pelvic part, and it continues at a ureter. Now it's different parts. You know, the main structural and functional unit of kidney is the nephron. So this nephron has basically the two parts. One is the renal corpuscular part and other is the tubular part. So these renal corpuscle, also called as Malpighian capsule, it constitutes basically two parts. One is the glomerular, other is the Bowman's capsule. So, and it is mainly responsible for blood filtration. And another part, its tubular part, it has various segments. Here you can see the proximal convoluted tubule, then there is a descending limb, and there is ascending limb, means these there is a PCT, then there is a loop of Henle. Loop of Henle, there is a descending limb and ascending limb. Descending limb is again two part, thick part and thin part. Similarly in ascending part also, thin part and thick part. Then there is a distal convoluted tubule, and then there is a ultimately collecting duct. So here I will basically focus more on its blood supply. So here you can see the branching of the artery. You know, it is supplied by the renal artery, which is direct branch of abdominal aorta. Then it's divided into segmental arteries. Segmental arteries further divide into the interlobular arteries. Interlobular arteries divide into the arcuate arteries. Arcuate arteries further divide into interlobular arteries, and these interlobular branches, they enter as a afferent arteriole into the Bowman's capsule. Over there they get divided into multiple fine capillaries and make a tuft-like structure called glomerulus. These capillaries again reunite, and then they form the efferent arteriole. Then further this efferent arteriole divides into again multiple capillaries, making a network around the different part of the tubules. So when this capillary network is around the in cortical part, around the DCT or PCT, then it is called as peritubular capillary. And when this capillary network comes deeper into the medulla and it follow to the this loop of Henle, these capillaries becomes longer and it reach up to the deeper part of the medulla and up to the papilla also. So over there this network of capillary is called as vasa recta. So basically in the blood flow there is a two kind of capillary system. One is the glomerular capillary, Another is the peritubular and vasa recta. So glomerulus is basically responsible for filtration of the blood, and this peritubular capillaries are basically related with the reabsorption of the uh, different nutrients from the filtrate and concentration of the urine. So if we talk about the blood supply in terms of volume, so it receives 1300 ml of blood per minute with an average range of blood pressure 70 to 200 millimeters of mercury. So this is the physiological range 70 to 200, and within this blood pressure range the glomerular filtrate remains normal. And this high blood flow into the kidney, what is the reason of high blood flow into the kidney is, it is not because of its metabolic need, it is because the blood is to be filtered into the glomerular capillary or into the woman's capsule via the glomerular capillaries. That's why there is a high blood flow to remove the different harmful products in the form of urine. So, and the pressure, there is a difference in the capillary bed pressure also. Here you can see the glomerular pressure is almost 60 to 70 mm of Hg, whereas the peritubular pressure is only 8 to 10 mm of Hg. So these are the few peculiarities related to the blood supply. Now, what is the difference between the there are two kind of nephrons, basically, cortical and juxtamedullary nephrons, and there is some structural difference, and this different name is because of their positions. Here you can see the cortical nephron, they are maximum in number, almost 85%, and they are located more over into the cortex part of the kidney or upper part of the medullary zone, whereas the juxtamedullary nephrons, they are only of 15% of total neurons, and their uh, they lie in inner part of the cortex, and their loop of Henle, it is very long in comparison to cortical neurons, and it extends up deeper into the uh, medulla, up to the inner zone of the medulla. So these basically these cortical neurons, they are related with the filtration and the uh, uh, formation of urine, the filtration process, and these long loops, they are involved with the concentration and reabsorption of the urine from the filtrate. So here you can see the division of this also. Ultimately there is a formation of collecting duct and duct of Bellini. Now, what is the nerve supply of the kidney? So, as you know, it has a sympathetic innervation, and there is a formation of renal plexus, and that renal plexus of the nerve, they follow the course of the renal arteries, and its sensory input is from the T10 to T11 level of a spinal cord. That's why if there is any pathology into the kidneys especially, so its referred pain is into the flank region. If there is some reduced blood flow to the glomerulus, so or there is decreased formation of urine because of low blood flow, so it gives stimulus to the sympathetic system, and because there are baroreceptors which are present in juxtaglomerular cells, so they sense the low blood pressure, and there is immediately sympathetic stimulation and release of adrenaline and noradrenaline, and again there is a vasoconstriction. So if there is any fall in blood pressure, so immediately there is release of renin, we will discuss later. So now what is the juxtaglomerular apparatus? It is a very important structure. So in this picture here you can see this is the capillary part. This is the distal convoluted tubule, and in the distal convoluted tubule there are modified smooth cells which form macula densa. Similarly, in case of this arteriole, efferent arterioles, when this DCT comes in contact with these efferent arterioles, so in the efferent arteriole side again there are the smooth muscles which get modified, and they act as a baroreceptor. And this macula densa, it is again modified smooth cell, and it is a chemoreceptor. And juxtaglomerular cells, they are the baroreceptors basically, and in between there are mesangial cells. And the whole complex of macula densa, juxtaglomerulus, and the mesangial cells is called as juxtaglomerulus apparatus. Now, in this regard, I will discuss renin-angiotensin system. So here in this figure you can see, suppose we take our situation like if there is low fluid flow or low sodium concentration. So it will stimulate to the chemoreceptor in macula densa, that will stimulate to the JG cells to release the renin. That renin comes into the blood, and there is a angiotensin 1. There is angiotensin, and that enzyme is formed by the liver into the blood. That renin converts angiotensin enzyme into angiotensin 1, and when this angiotensin 1 reaches into the lungs, by the angiotensin converting enzyme it gets converted into angiotensin 2. Then this angiotensin 2 has potent vasoconstrictor effect. Again, it stimulates to the adrenal cortex. This is the cortex part of the kidney. From here, release of aldosterone. So, first effect is with the angiotensin 2 is it is a strong vasoconstrictor. Then it causes release of aldosterone further, because under the influence of aldosterone there is increased sodium uptake. So basically there is retention of water along with the sodium, and thus the blood volume is maintained, less water loss, and uh, uh, there is a vasoconstriction. So because of that there is increase in the blood pressure, and that sympathetic stimulation causes release of ADH. So the antidiuretic hormone, it is released from posterior part of the pituitary. It acts over the DCT, and over there DCT and collecting duct, over there it causes the increased activation of aquaporins, and it causes uh, less loss of water from the urine. So the urine becomes concentrated if there is the blood pressure is low, or there is a decrease in blood volume. So this is the mechanism how there is release of renin, and this renin activates the angiotensin, and further there is a regulation of whole mechanism. Now the important structure is the renal corpuscle. It is the part of nephron. So here you can see the efferent arteriole entering into this glomerular into the Bowman capsule. This is the afferent arteriole entering into the Bowman's capsule. It is diameter is more. Efferent arteriole has less diameter. Then this Bowman's capsule, you can see it is a double layered. Outer layer is its parietal layer, inner layer is visceral layer, and that visceral layer is adherent with the basement membrane. So basically this glomerular and Bowman's capsule, It is responsible for filtration of the blood and formation of ultrafiltrate. Now, what is filtration membrane basically? So, uh, it is a three-layered structure in the uh, renal corpuscle. This inner one is the endothelial layer of the capillary. This endothelial layer of capillary has pores. It is called filtration pore. Then there is a basement membrane. This is the basement membrane, blue one. And then there is a uh, visceral layer of Women's capsule, which is formed by the epithelial cells, but they are modified cells. So they have the food processes called podocytes. And with these processes, they are directly attached with the basement membrane. And in between these epithelial cells of the visceral layer of the woman's capsule, there is a pore that is called filtration slit. So the the membrane, it is the inner membrane, which is called glomerular membrane, basically, or capillary membrane. It is a glomerular capillary membrane. It is very highly permeable, and it allow the movement of smaller ions which are less than 8 nanometer, or the particles or the molecules, to move from the capillary through the filtration pore, crossing the basement membrane, then entering into the filtration slit, and the water, electrolyte, glucose, amino acid, fatty acid, vitamins, urea, uric acid, and creatinine. So all these cross from the these filtration membrane and reach into the capsular space. Whereas some larger molecules or particles, like blood cells, plasma proteins, larger ions, hormones, and other which have dia more than 8 nanometer, do not cross the filtration pore of endothelial cells. Here one thing I would like to mention, that only size does not matter, whether the molecule or the substance will cross the endothelial layer or not. Basically, along with the size, the charge over the molecule or ion, it also depends whether it cross or not. So the like larger anions or larger proteins, they have negative charge. That's why they are expelled from the filtration membrane away. They are expelled away from the filtration membrane because of presence of negative charge over them. And there is presence of, in between the three layers, there is presence of mesangial cells also. So these mesangial cells, basically, they are again the they have contractile properties. So they regulate the GFR, and they are present along the capillaries. So if they constrict, they make the lumen of the capillary narrower. So that's why how they regulate the blood flow into the capillary. And they also release some vasoactive agent called prostaglandins. So the prostaglandins, they also, mesangial cells are modified smooth muscles present around the glomerular capillaries, having the contractile and phagocytic function. So here one thing I would like to mention, whether that this mesangial cells, they are modified smooth cells. They are not derivative of lymphocytes or monocytes, but they have the phagocytic function. This is the very interesting thing, and they uh, play a great role in cases of chronic uh, glomerulonephritis cases. These mesangial cells, they also release prostaglandins, and they contract against various vasoactive agents like adenosine. Uh, so these mesangial cells are basically the modified cells which are interspersed in the juxtaglomerular capsule along with the efferent arterioles, but play a great role in the pathophysiology of kidney, as well as regulation of renal blood flow, and they also play great role in different kind of removal of different immune complexes also. Thank you. I will continue the renal physiology in the next part.